You're watching the Sports Central Podcast.
All right, very pleased to be joined by the Hall of Famer, Stanley Cup champ, and now author, throw broadcaster in there as well. Chris Pronger joins us on the Sports Central Podcast. How are you, sir?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
How does it feel to be back in Southern California where you won a cup?
Feels amazing. Was in Anaheim for a couple days doing some book promo stuff, but also got to see a lot of old friends, some teammates, former coach, so that was nice.
I want to get into this book. I can't wait to dive into it with you, but let's start with this version of the Ducks. You mentioned it, Coach Q's first win. We actually did an interview with him right before his 1,000th, and we talked about number one. Yeah. You had a big part in number one, didn't you?
I guess I did. Apparently I was player of the game, a couple assists, and it was great to see him get his first win, be a part of it. And actually played good. It's nice to have that fond memory.
I'm sure you're not surprised by the quick turnaround that Joel Quenneville has kind of imprinted on this Ducks team.
Yeah, no, he certainly has the template. What he did for us in St. Louis, then he went on quick stint in Colorado, but then what he was able to do in Chicago. Obviously, 3 Stanley Cups, a good young core there that now the Ducks' young core he's trying to shape and mold in a similar fashion.
What impact did he have on your career, Chris? You had so many stops and so many different influences, but Coach Q and his sustainability in the league right now.
Yeah, I think his style, not only his coaching style, but the way he taught the game, I think he was very much ahead of his time, very forward-thinking, just stick on puck, how he wanted his defensemen to play the game, not necessarily a rough-and-tumble approach to it, but certainly a competitive style. Being a former defenseman himself, he really played a huge role in helping me develop as a defenseman.
It's been fun to see what they do in the playoffs. Hopefully they can make some noise here in April. All right, so let's get into this book. I told you off air, this is my genre, this is my wheelhouse, a sports book that you can apply to life. Yeah. Why was it important to write this book, Earned?
Yeah, I think for me, as I built out my speaking platform and really kind of dove into writing some of the speeches and looked at my experiences and how I could impart those on the crowd and those in attendance and give them tangible takeaway that they could then implement into their lives and learn from, and et cetera. So I started looking at these life lessons. I started looking at, not only my career, but my early upbringing and then post-playing days and how I could have the biggest possible impact on them. And the framework for the book began to take shape, and that's what you get with Earned.
What I love about the book is that you actually had to go through stuff even as recently as a couple of years ago to complete this exactly what you wanted in this template here. Yeah,
I stopped drinking 2.5 years ago, and that's kind of really where the clarity happened of what did 2.0, 3.0, whatever we want to call it, what did that look like? What type of impact could I have on people? What type of legacy could I leave? Not only, it's Chris the hockey player and Hall of Fame career, et cetera, but bigger picture. What does that legacy look like? Where could I have the most impact? And the book certainly plays a big part in that.
So the first thing you do, you open it, you see the forward, Timo Solani.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that you guys were teammates, but before that, fierce competitors. I guess, if we go back 20 years ago, could you ever envision him writing the forward to your book?
Exactly. No. Certainly not with the battles that we had. From the jump, really. We both highly passionate, very intense individuals. Him, obviously, a goal scorer, me trying to shut down a goal scorer. And so there was a lot of moments where we battled and butted heads, if you will. But certainly, as people will read in the forward and obviously throughout the course of the book, like, we're highly competitive individuals. But once you're teammates, that bond forms, and we certainly got along great as teammates, became great friends, and love the guy, love the way he played the game, just everything about it. I used to get, hairs would stand up on the back of my neck thinking about before every game. He's like, we got to play with passion, and just boom, we go out on the ice, and that was kind of the Kickstarter for, all right, boys, game time.
You were kind of the missing link to that team to get over the hump. When you walked in to the facility and he saw you, like, I think you outlined that in the book. He's like, hold on a second. Are we teammates now?
Yeah.
What? Did we just become best friends?
Yep. Very intentional in that first meeting in front of our teammates. All right, come here. Give me a hug, kid. Let's go. Let's get this out of the way so everybody, we can turn the page. Yes, we were competitors and we battled, but now we're teammates and now we have a purpose and a single-minded outcome. We want to win the Stanley Cup.
Yep. What kind of starts you get booed in Hartford? I mean, you are a top 2 pick in the draft. All the talent in the world, high hopes, high expectations, and you're hearing your own fans boo you. Like, take me back to that time in your career.
Yeah, not pretty. Expectations super high, 2nd overall pick. A lot of pressure, big contract. I think the expectations or what maybe the portrayal of what I could do for the franchise may have been a little overstated, but certainly didn't handle the pressure, the expectations. Was very inconsistent, very up and down in my play, and a little immature at times in not understanding what was expected of me, both on and off the ice. And so struggled at times, and those were tough times in my career. And, really had to do a lot of soul searching after I got traded to St. Louis, where, the business of sports kicks in and you realize, okay, this is a business. There's expectations, and also you're getting paid to play a certain way. You don't follow suit, you're on your way to the next stop.
Chris, I feel like there's so many people, whether you're in sports or in business, that have these expectations. You come in, let's say you're making a lot of money and you're expected to turn a company around, or you're expected to turn a department around, and you feel like, maybe I bit off more than I can chew. How did that kind of resonate with you during that time in your career that led you to say, okay, hold on a second, I got to make a change?
Yeah, so then I get traded from Hartford to St. Louis. Again, traded for a fan favorite, 50-goal scorer, star player on the Blues at the time. I didn't, again, not realizing expectations, not realizing who I got traded for, not, a little naive to what's kind of going on around me. And again, get booed on home ice, and, I'm falling apart. I'm in a deep, dark hole, depressed, a lot of anxiety, really struggling with pro sports, with all of it. And, went and saw a sports psychologist about halfway through the year. And, the 4 words that hit home were, what are your standards?
Yep.
And I was like, I don't have any. I know how to play the game. I love to play the game. Or so I thought. And, at the point, I was losing the love for the game with just the weight of everything coming down on me. And once I started having this conversation with the doctor, he kind of walked me through. He just asked me a couple simple questions. How do you feel when you play good? I feel really good. The next one kind of punched me in the gut. He's like, well, when you play bad, how do you feel? I go, well, usually I don't feel really good when I'm. So then he looked at me and he goes, so when you feel good, you play good. When you feel bad, you play bad. Well, how do you change that? And how do you reboot that with standards? And what exactly what are these standards that you can implement into your life that are simple, at the age of 21, that are really going to resonate and you're going to be able to take hold of them? I set 3 standards that were the foundation and base of everything that I did. And I had a weak mindset. I was letting all of this noise distract me and get in my head. And, once I was able to create a stronger mindset, get rid of the victimhood mentality, and just take ownership and accountability for my actions, for everything that was taking place, stop blaming the fans, teammates, refs, coaches, everything around me. It was everybody's fault but my own.
Yeah.
And once I took ownership of that, my talent and my ability really kind of started to bubble up and come to the forefront. And then my hard work and all the rest of the stuff that I was implementing kind of took hold. And then I saw my game take off. And then, oh, by the way, we got this guy, number 99, Wayne Gretzky.
Take a little pressure off.
Not only took pressure off, but more importantly, took the eyes off me.
Yeah.
So now, as I was starting to kind of figure it out and find myself, he shows up, diverts the attention of the fan base and everybody over here, as I'm starting to, really kind of grasp a little bit more control of my life, my career, my play. And now I'm able to watch one of the greatest of all time and watch how he handles the scrutiny, the notoriety, the fandom, the media, preparation, how he plays the game, all that stuff, and be a sponge and really soak all that up. And then, as the rest of the season played out, now I'm like, not only was I already starting to figure out, now I've starting to mature and understand the expectation and what I need to do day in, day out from a standards perspective to start leveling up my play and being more consistent.
Not that you wouldn't have gotten it later on in life, but if you hadn't heard those 4 words, what are your standards, at that time in your career, with Wayne Gretzky coming in shortly after and that kind of perfect storm happening in a good way, how do you think things may have been different?
Yeah, that's always the big question, right? Is what if, and the nice part is I don't buy into the what if anymore. Like throughout the course of the book, throughout my career, I don't look back on, I remember and I learn from, and I am able to recall moments and learn from it, whether it's history, whether it's my career, what have you, in trying to learn from, adapt, and evolve. But I don't look at moments and go, well, what if I didn't do this, and how would it? Everything else after that has changed.
Yeah.
So, if we fast forward, like I get to Edmonton, I ask for a trade, I come to Anaheim. Well, what if I didn't ask for a trade out of Edmonton? Or what if I didn't get traded to Edmonton, I went somewhere else? None of the other stuff after that is going to be the same.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't change any of it for anything, because it all helped me grow. It all helped me become the person I am, and allowed me to have the type of success I had and be looked upon. There was a lot of doubters. There was a lot of question marks about me in St. Louis. Was I a good leader? Could I do this? Could I do that? And now, you look at it 10 years after when my career is over, and you're looked on at a completely different light. How is that? And why is that? And that's part of that journey. And we're all, I walk through it in the book. We're all on our own unique journey. We're all on our own path. You don't divert and think, well, this guy does it this way, or this gal does it this way, I'm going to follow that path. We're on our own journey, and we have to look at it as such and really focus on, our feet are going this way, our eyes are going this way. We don't have rearview mirrors. We're not, you can think about it and learn from it, but you need to be focused on the present, and you need to be focused on the future.
It's that growth mindset, Chris. I feel like standards constantly evolving.
Yeah.
Like the Edmonton part of the book, you outline how your standards change in terms of family, and just making family the priority over hockey. I don't know how much you want to get into it. It's in the book, and it's a fascinating part of it.
Yeah, I think how the whole we were excited about the trade, the opportunity, but with a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
And then albeit later on, get talked into signing a 5-year deal without consulting my wife, without having the conversation. And then, spent the better part of a year trying to figure out how to manage the situation, mitigate the situation, and ultimately, force a trade. And, while I enjoyed the time and had a lot of success in Edmonton, and really, when you think about it, kind of changed the narrative about me as a leader and a player.
Sure.
At the same time, that throws a wrench in things, I guess, a little bit in their eyes, maybe not anybody else's. But I was not going to put my career in front of my life based on everything that I had already gone through, all the booing and all, the business of sports and all the rest of it. I knew at that point what sports was about, how short life was, how short your career is even inside of that. And really, at the end of the day, you have to look out for number one, and that's you, that's your family. And then inside of that, your career and all the rest of it. So it really kind of set the parameters moving forward of this is how I operate.
Yeah. It also makes me feel like, we're imperfect people, man.
Yeah.
Like Chris Pronger, Hall of Famer, champion, 2nd overall pick. If he's going through things in his life at different chapters, right? But he's learning from them, he's evolving. You could really correlate that to something like, depends on what chapter you are in your life.
Yeah.
But there may be something that you did in your 30s that you regret and you won't do in your 40s.
Learn from.
And I feel like that's the kind of the crux of this book, is that, like, you can evolve and you can continue to be great, but you have to look in the mirror first, I guess.
You have to hold yourself accountable. You have to take ownership. And, I think to bring it into athletics, all we do is fail as athletes. We learn.
That's it.
Like, not that we're failures, but we fail. And then we adapt, we evolve. And we go on to win and try to win championships and try to be winners, and through failure. And I, talk about it in the book, like adversity is a gift. You have to utilize it as such. And so you are going to fail. You have to challenge yourself. You have to push yourself. but you have to evolve and learn from all of that stuff.
You know, we are taping this just the weekend after UCLA won a national championship in women's basketball. And there was a quote from Corey Close that made me think about your book. She said, you know, our talent is our floor, but our character will determine our ceiling.
Yeah.
And it resonated with me because you had all the talent in the world, second overall pick, but you needed to implement some things to take you over the top and be the Hall of Fame player that you were.
A lot of times, I shouldn't say a lot of times, most of the time, it's not your talent. It's your mindset. It's the grit and resilience that you have, the character, and how you rise to the top, and what you're willing to fight through, battle through, your ability not to quit, and then to level up and continue to find the resolve to be successful.
You also got to be tough, right? 1998, Game
Yeah.
2, Detroit, your heart stops on the ice. Take me through that moment and just I just still marvel at the fact that you played 48 hours later, man. It's crazy, but it speaks to who you are.
Yeah, and maybe my age too. I was 23, so I was still very young, but I think still very much coming of age in the National Hockey League, kind of getting over that hump of figuring out the type of player that I could be, wanted to be, and I routine play. We're killing a penalty, puck goes D to D. I step out to block the shot. Hits me right in the heart, a little stinging sensation. And in
It's like 1 in 1,000, like,
not even,
right?
no, 1 in a million. To hit me in that exact spot, 1 in a million. And it hits me, it stings, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, okay, cut. We're in Detroit. The Boo Birds are going to come out very soon, cover the puck, get a whistle. And in my head, I'm like, okay, do all that. And then I black out, but on the video, you can see, and then I'm like, get up and get to the bench. So I'm blacked out, and I stand up and start trying to move to the bench, which is, just up here to the left. I knew where I was, and just, boom, collapsed, down. Next thing you know, I wake up, and a trainer's right here in my face. I'm staring up at the banners at Joe Louis Arena, and I'm like, wait a minute, I was over here in the corner. How am I in the middle of the ice? And then I look over, and I see Brett Hull. He's crying on the bench, and all these guys are, like, just in utter shock. And they're just kind of like this, watching all this transpire. And then our trainers kind of give me like, don't move, just relax. All my stuff is cut open. I'm bare chested. And they're, they was just getting ready to do mouth to mouth. They didn't have defibrillators. And so,
My goodness.
So all this stuff is playing out like in seconds.
And this is in the playoffs.
This is in the playoffs on Fox, like on live TV. And so as this is all transpiring, the trainer's telling me kind of what's happening, just relax, you passed out, you weren't breathing. My lips were starting to turn blue when all of a sudden I just started breathing again. And so, it's funny, as I got to the hospital, not funny, but interesting that I got to the hospital, they're kind of walking me through a little bit of what they think happened. And then the next day I fly back to St. Louis, go to the heart specialist, wear a heart monitor for 24 hours and do a bunch of testing and track and see if there's any arrhythmia issues and kind of walk through a battery of tests, come back the next morning, go to sleep, come back the next morning. Now this is the day of the game 3, back home in St. Louis, go back in, do another battery of tests. She looks at my heart monitor, make sure there's no blips or any issues. And then we just have the conversation of, are there any short-term side effects, long-term side effects? What does it look like? What actually happened? And she's basically like, this is a lottery ticket. Like, this is so infrequent. It never happens. This is the first time it ever happened on live TV to an athlete. And
what do you remember of the broadcast? Like people watching, like friends and family watching from home?
my parents were in the building. So as I'm,
goodness.
getting wheeled out in the stretcher to the ambulance, I'm like, make sure, they had said on the loudspeaker, hey, would Chris Pronger's wife please go to the, Zamboni entrance? Well, it's my parents, not my wife. I wasn't married yet.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, no, it's my parents. Can you please tell them they're in section, whatever. And so they come down, what have you. And so I'll go back to, so then as I'm talking to the doctor, she's walking me through all this. She's like, listen, it is a freak occurrence. This rarely happens a lot to Little League baseball players. Get hit with a comeback or line drive, or a guy coming in a bunt, he gets hit with a line drive. Unfortunately, a lot of those kids die because they're not strong enough for their heart to restart and whatnot. And so she's like, listen, it happens. Very rarely, but it happens, and your heart restarts and things kind of recirculate. And so She's like, I'm like, well, could this happen again? She's like, well, sure, but it has to happen in an exact sequence of timing, the electrical current, when it hits you, all the rest of that. I skipped one beat, and that's when I passed out. That's how much oxygen goes through you with that one heartbeat. So she walked me through all of that stuff, and she's like, listen, you're cleared to play if you want to play. I'll get it if you don't want to. It's obviously a huge situation for you, medically speaking, and so I was like, all right, I'll take warm up and see how I feel. Go home, do my routine, pregame meal, sleep, go down to the rink. Told them, I'm going to come take warm up, see how I feel. When you're down there, you're like,
You're never not going to play.
You get in the rhythm. Yeah. No, once I get my gear on,
it's on.
It's over, because then I go for warm up and you hear the buzz in the building. You're like, oh man, he's here.
Yeah.
And then, come back and I look at, come off the ice. I'm like, I'm good. I'm going. And so then now the room's buzzing, right? The boys are ready to rock and roll, and they're all fired up that you're back. And coming out of that tunnel to the playoff game, roar of the crowd, like just hair always stand up.
It's gonna be a core
back
memory
of my
for
neck, just the energy in the building, and just when I walk in that tunnel, the roar of the crowd, and just all the lights on you and stuff, and just like, he's back, holy shit.
Yeah.
And I can't believe it. 36 hours ago he was laying on the ice. Now he's back, and so just rip the Band-Aid off. I just didn't want that stigma of like, oh, could it happen again? Whatever. I'm like, if I'm good to go and she's fine with me playing, just get it out of the way.
How much perspective did it give you, just on life? It feels like you didn't even have enough time to think about it. You just want to get back out there.
Yeah, I think that was for later. Thinking about what could have been. Like as I said, there's a lot of people that die from that. So it, I think it brought everything into perspective. I think at that moment in my career, I was starting to figure things out, starting to take off. And I think having that perspective of that moment really gave me the strength to, all right, this is it. This is the moment of now. You've got this second opportunity, and you have a good handle on where your career is at, and your style of play, and how you need to show up every day, and how you need to prepare, and how you need to take advantage of this opportunity. And so, we lose in, I think it was 5 games or whatever it was. And after that year, I met my new trainer, and, I had already, that year I was up for the Norris Trophy, nominated as Norris Trophy nominee. Rob Blake actually won that year.
Oh, there you go.
And so now I'm remake my diet, my weight training, all my energy protocols. I remade everything that summer. I was pushing my chips in.
Standards were evolving.
The standards were evolving, and now I'm going all in on my standards and going all in on everything, and I'm just pushing my chips in and like, I'm doing this, and I'm going to get to here. And so that was the start of, I was already on my way, but that was where I really invested in myself and really took accountability and ownership for what the outcome could be and will be.
I want to just fast forward to Anaheim, because there's a lot of Ducks fans watching this.
Yeah.
Just winning a cup here, the memories that you had with these guys. We talked about Solani, but just what are your core memories as an Anaheim Duck?
I think belief. Like, we believed not only in one another, but we believed we could win. And that championship DNA was there. The pedigree was there, but we needed to go execute and then win it. And so that first year I got here, it was right from the jump, from the moment Timo and I hugged to when we raised the cup. It was, we were together. We're doing this together. It's in this room. We can do this. And the belief in one another. And then how we showed each other, how committed we were, our style of play. We were in it for one another. That was a great group of players. And when you're able to accomplish something that you've set out to do like that, it's special.
Chris, you could do anything, man. You do everything, right? You played. You could coach if you wanted to. I don't think you want to go down the coaching.
No.
The coaching.
Yeah, no. My hair is not gray yet.
Yeah, but just being a broadcaster. How do you like being a broadcaster? You're awesome at it.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I like teaching people the nuance that I see in the game and what's going on the screen in front of them. And how they can utilize what I see to help them learn more about the game and how they watch it, what they look for, and just the enjoyment of it, of how skilled these players are and how unique they are.
How have you been able to translate the ambition that you had on the ice to other things? Because I think, people in life, if they shift careers, it's hard to maybe kind of bottle up that ambition and apply it to something else.
Yeah, I think, and that's what the book's about right there. It's about ownership, accountability, and what is your standard. Regardless of sport, business, life, family, whatever, this is the standard. And we work for everything we get. We take advantage of every opportunity because we put the work in. We earn it. Yeah. And that's why the book is named Earn. We have to earn everything that we do in life. That's something that I preach to my kids. Is like, I had to earn my career. Everybody thinks it's given to me. It was not given to me. Let's just look at those early days that we talked about, where I was booed off the ice surface. Like, I had to earn my stripes. I had to earn my opportunities. I had to earn getting better and playing at a high level. And so I'd invest in myself, in how I trained, how I ate, all the rest of it, and then reap the rewards because I put the work in. And so, you try to explain that to people, and you try to walk people through that throughout the book of how to improve, how to evolve, how to adapt, how to challenge yourself and your teammates and coworkers. Like, we have to hold yourself here, challenge your teammates to get here, and hold one another accountable and push one another because we want to be successful.
I took a bunch of notes because there's things that I want to apply to my life that I read in this book. This is a standard plus adversity plus ownership equals success.
Yeah,
how
the difference maker's code. The difference maker's code.
Yep.
You have to set standards and live them every single day. You have to take ownership every single day. And when you think about the adversity that we all face, you have to lean into it. You have to challenge yourself. If you're not facing adversity in business, in life, you're not growing, you're not evolving, you're not getting better because you're not leveling up to reach that goal. And if you do all three of those things, you will be successful and you will be a difference maker.
It seems like, when you write a book like this, you're not just doing it to talk about your career. You're doing this to help others.
Yeah.
When you speak, I'm sure after people read this book, how does it make you feel when somebody says, Chris, that book, that changed the way I do things?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get into speaking. And my friend is a performance coach. He talked me into it. He's like walking me through, man, you'd be really good at this. And I'd been asked to do a bunch of different speaking events over the years. And I didn't really have a message, so to speak. It was more going up, telling stories and having fun and all the rest of that. And as I started really digging into, speaking and I want to make an impact. I want people to leave that talk and be able to apply something in their lives that is going to allow them to level up and get better at whatever it is they want to do. Family, personal, professional, and make a difference in their lives and others around them. And you read the book, you're going to challenge yourself. You're going to really kind of invest in yourself. You're investing in yourself and those around you.
The book is Earned. The True Cost of Greatness from one of hockey's fiercest competitors. And it's out now. Get it. I can't recommend it enough. Chris, let's end on this book cover and then that ring.
Oh, yeah. This thing.
Show that ring off.
Let's put it right there.
Boom. Put it right there. Chris Pronger, thank you for being here, my man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You got it.